Okay, let's cut out a sawtooth star. I'm putting my fabric right sides together. I'm laying it over the die. My green ends here, so I will use that as a judge. I am just putting it over the half square triangle and the square. Now, I don't need a square with my green, but I will use it, so I'm not worried about that. This is what we're making, the sawtooth star. Okay, so I've laid it over once. Now, these are still right sides together. I can fold this back on itself, and I'm cutting 4 layers at a time, putting my mat on. And in my other video, I told you because I have a very old mat, I have to use a card on top so it'll give the right amount of pressure. So there we go. Don't worry about the extra fabric. As soon as the die is through, the machine will stop, and then I can just pull it through. So now I have 2 half square triangles ready to sew together, and 2 more half square triangles ready to sew together because I cut it with the right sides together of the fabric. So these will just need maybe just tiny shifting. Also, I have 2 of my corner squares in the white. Just as a reminder, I need 4 corner squares and 8 half square triangles. Sorry, I didn't have it up. 4 corner squares and 8 half square triangles. So the next pass will get me all my half square triangles, my extra 2 corner squares, and my center. Now I have this is not waste. I will use this later, but just for our purposes, I'm going to cut it off. This is waste. That's very little waste for what we're getting. Okay, so now I still have my right sides together, and I can put this on here, angled as the blades are angled on the die. Now I can see my green won't totally cut. I'm going to let myself cut a white square because I'm going to applique some stars on white. Okay, so that's covered, the corners are covered. So I'm going to get my green 4.5 by 4.5 inch square. I will get another green square because the way I have this folded, and you don't have to do all of this like this. Now I'm folding it in half, remembering right sides are still together, but I just want it to come to here. So what is a good suggestion for that? Let me see. How about if we turn it like this? Still right sides together. And I will get 4 half square triangles. Let's see. I do believe I'm good to go on, and I do have a little extra green there, but I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's see what I get on that. Trying to make sure I use every last bit of fabric. That's a complaint some people have had, that the AccuQuilt wastes fabric. Well, I don't really let it waste hardly any fabric, and I don't think you will either. Okay, so let's put this through. Let's see what we got here. Nothing stuck. Okay, so here I have my other two white corner squares. Let's see here so you can kind of see where we're going. And here, oh, I got one little thread there. Not a problem. If you have to snip one or two little threads, that is so not a problem because of all the accurate cutting you're getting. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 to add to my 4 other half square triangles. I have my 4 corner posts and I have my center. Because this is featured, let me see what this one looks like. Because I don't really fussy cut, but that looks pretty with the flowers. I have 1 extra white and 1 extra green, which you know you can use those in a lot of things. So, okay, let's go over to the sewing machine and put this together. So I have all of my half square triangles stacked up. My 4 corner blocks. So let's sew these half square triangles together. Now I took my table off just so I could have this laid out, but I have the washi tape here with the 1/4 inch seam line, and that's where I'm watching. Remember, as you sew, don't watch your needle going up and down. It'll mess up your whole design. Let's see if it pulls it through, because I forgot to get my little trick too. Just start first. I call it dummy fabric. It's just fabric that's a waste, and then it gets it going and doesn't leave any opening at the back for this to want to fall down into. My machine doesn't usually do that. I think I need to get it serviced, but maybe you have a machine that does that, so you want to start like that. Okay, 1/4 inch line is right here. My needle's down. I'm going to hold this to make sure that once this starts going through. Okay, here we go. Let's try again. Yeah, I don't know why it wasn't doing it before. I flipped it over, so maybe there was something at the end of that fabric. Okay, so now just sew them all together as a chain. I want to make sure, because the cut is so accurate, I want to make sure that I get it right to the edge of the fabric. Don't pull on the sides as you're going through, because it's all cut on the bias. Okay, let's take them over to the ironing board, and then we'll come back and put our star together. I have this little handy dandy blade cutter. It's called Blade Saver by purplehobbies.com, and it has an old rotary blade in it. But rotary blades are still pretty sharp, and so it's such a handy dandy little gadget, because I can just stand here while my iron is heating up and just cut these apart. So remember, we needed 8 of these for each star. I have made 16. So I'm just going to press 8. But with the pressing of these, you do, let me turn it this way, 4 of the little squares to the dark and 4 to the light. I always put the side I'm going toward on top, and you'll see why. So let's press these. I'm setting the seams, which helps the thread to know that it's going to be working. Let me do it without putting my hand in front. So I'm going to roll this back, and when I roll it back, the seam stays flat and ends up pointing to the dark side of the square. And this one too. I hope my hand isn't totally in the way, but you get the idea. I'm picking it up, I'm rolling it back, and now it's ready, and it's a square, and because it was cut so accurately, I'm not even going to square them up. I think it'll work just fine. This one I can say I got a little off, but it all comes out in the wash. I try not to be too picky because they end up so nice anyway. Okay, so now we have our 4 to the light and 4 to the dark. Now let's set up our star. I'm just going to shift you a little bit so you can see on here. This is my finished star, and it helps me to know where everything goes. So now I'm going to put my first thing is the corner. Second thing is a star that's pressed to the light. I can see the shadow here, so I know how I did it. You just want to do every other one, and the reason for that is when you're sewing them together, at this seam right here, there is a lot of fabric coming in there, but this alleviates it just a little bit. The next row, you kind of have to do 2 at a time. I kind of call these kitty ears. If I know my kitty ears are up, then I know I've positioned this right. Now the next one, I want to have light, then dark. Okay. Press to the light, and then press to the dark. And then the next row includes my center 4.5 by 4.5 inch square. Now I'm going to do it pressed to the dark one right here, and a pressed to the light one right here. Another corner. This row has the corners. It has a light row and a dark row. Whoops, I didn't really get a kitty ear up there. There we go. So you can see that is how we're going to put it together. Now I'm just going to carry this mat over to the sewing machine so we can sew it together. I'm going to pause you while I get set up over there, and then you can sew the rows with me. Okay, here we are back at the sewing machine. So I'm going to flip this one over onto the next one and sew it together. I'm going to flip this one to that one and sew it together. Now normally, because I always try to do chain stitching, I would have stitched everything that I could together, but I want to show you how to put this whole first row together and then you can go and do the rest by yourself because you'll have it. And the only reason I want to show you this is so you can see how the seam is going down and this seam is going up. So when I put the points together, I have a nice connection and not too much fabric bulk in there. So I'm going to start sewing at that corner. Make sure it's under there really good. Hold my threads back. And there we go. So you now have the top row done. Now I want you to sew these two together and then sew them on there and then do the bottom row just like we did the top row. And then we'll go back to the ironing board. Okay, let's go to the ironing board. Now when you get to this point, the ironing, to make it more simple for putting your block together, the top row goes out and the bottom row seams go out. The middle row go in. And you'll see that it wants to be that way even just as I rub it with my fingers. So let's do that. I'm going to start on this side to make sure I'm not getting any puckers. Then I'll just double check. Yes, my seams did go the right direction. They went down. Same with this one. I'm going to do it this way and then this way. And yeah, see, it just wants to lay that way because of the way the seaming is. And then this one, we want them to go out. Now let's double check on this side. And they all look good. It looks like it will be a smooth transition to put these two seams together and these two seams together. So now let's go back to the sewing machine. Okay, because of the way we pressed, we can nestle those two together so we know that the seam matches. And because the AccuQuilt is so accurate, we can see it goes right to the end. I have a habit of always holding my threads when I start so they don't get sucked under. I didn't pin, but if you want, on some I have pinned. When I made the Lemoyne Star, I did pin. So if you want to pin, don't hesitate. Don't think you can't pin because I didn't. because of the way we pressed, the machine is going right over that little problem area. Let's see how that worked. My point is okay. I don't want you to stress about your points. Just have fun and make your star nice. My points aren't perfect, but I'm not entering this in a contest. Okay, let's get these two together. And there you have it. It's all done. So now you have the Sawtooth Star all set up for your stars row by row with AccuQuilt, the row of stars. Okay, have fun.